I work as a night cleaner at a corporate office building downtown. The job pays well, and I usually work alone, which suits me fine. I clean floors 15 through 20 of a 30-floor building, starting at 11 p.m. and finishing by 6 a.m. 3 weeks ago. I noticed something odd on floor 18. Every cubicle had its computer monitor turned on, displaying the same email. The subject line read, "Are you watching?" with no message body. I figured someone forgot to log off, though it seemed weird that every computer showed the same thing. I turned them all off and continued my routine. The next night, the monitors were on again. Same email, but this time the subject line said, "I know you saw." My skin crawled. I checked the security log at the main desk. Nobody had badged in after 8 p.m. except me. I mentioned it to the day's security guard, Marcus, who said he would check the cameras. He called me later that afternoon saying the footage showed nothing unusual, just me entering, doing my job, and leaving. On my third night, I decided to skip floor 18 entirely. I cleaned 17, took the elevator straight to 19, and continued my routine. Around 2 a.m. ding. The display showed it stopping at 18, then 17, then 16. It was coming down toward me. I was on 15. I grabbed my supply cart and headed for the stairwell. The elevator dinged again. Floor 15. The doors open. Nobody stepped out. I watched from behind the corner as the empty elevator sat there, doors wide open, for what felt like forever. Then they closed, and it went back up to 18. I called Marcus immediately. He checked the system and said the elevator showed no movement for the past hour. According to the log, it had been sitting idle at the ground floor. But I knew what I saw. I finished my shift in the lower floors and left early. The fourth night, I brought my phone to record everything. If something weird happened again, I wanted proof. Floor 18 was my first stop. Every monitor was on, but instead of emails, they showed security camera footage. Live footage. Of me, standing right there in that exact moment. I spun around looking for cameras, but saw none in the cubicle area. The footage showed angles that made no sense, like someone was standing right behind me filming. I ran for the elevator and pressed the button frantically. The doors opened immediately. Inside was a man in a janitor uniform, exactly like mine. He had my name tag. My face, but his eyes were all wrong. They were too wide, unblinking, like a doll's eyes. He smiled and said, "Going down?" in my voice. I backed away and he stepped out of the elevator, moving toward me with that same awful smile. I sprinted to the stairwell and ran down all 15 flights without stopping. When I burst through the lobby, Marcus jumped up from his desk, asking what happened. I could barely speak. We reviewed the security footage together. It showed me entering the building, taking the elevator to 15, and then calmly walking back down and exiting. No running. No panic. Just a normal night, but the timestamp was wrong. The footage showed 3:47 a.m. My phone said 2:15 a.m. I quit that night. Marcus called me the next day saying they found something disturbing. On floor 18, in a supply closet I had never opened, they discovered someone had been living there. There were dozens of printed photos of me taped to the walls. Photos from weeks before I even started the job. Photos of me at home, at the grocery store, getting in my car. The police investigated but found no fingerprints except mine, which was impossible since I never touched that closet door. They also found a janitor uniform and a latex mask. The kind movie studios use. It was molded to look exactly like my face. Security reviewed months of footage but found no evidence of anyone else entering the building. Whoever it was had been there all along, hiding somewhere in those upper floors. Maybe they still are. I work days now at a different company. Sometimes I drive past that building at night and count the floors. Floor 18 always has its lights on. I started substitute teaching to make ends meet while finishing my master's degree. The work was straightforward: follow lesson plans, maintain order, collect assignments. Most days passed without incident. Then I got assigned to Jefferson Middle School. The regular teacher, Mrs. Chen, had taken sudden medical leave. The principal seemed nervous when briefing me, constantly checking his watch and glancing at the classroom door. He handed me the lesson plans and said, "Just stick to the schedule. Don't deviate." The students know what to expect. The class had 24 students according to the roster, but I counted 25 kids when they filed in. I recounted. Definitely 25. I checked the seating chart. Every desk was filled, plus one boy sitting in the back corner where no desk should be. He wore the same uniform as everyone else but kept his head down, never looking up. I started with attendance. When I finished all 24 names, the extra boy raised his hand. "You forgot me," he said. The other students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Nobody looked at him directly. "What's your name?" I asked. "Tyler Morrison." I scanned the roster again. "No Tyler Morrison." "I don't see you on the list. I'm always here," he said. "Ask them." The other students nodded silently, still avoiding eye contact with him or me. Something felt deeply wrong. I decided to continue the lesson and deal with it later. Halfway through the math problems, I noticed students passing notes. Not unusual, except they all went to Tyler. He would read each one, write something, and pass it back. The students would read his response and quickly hide the paper. No passing," I announced. The room went completely silent. Tyler stood up. "They need to ask permission," he said. "Permission for what?" "To leave. If someone needs the restroom, they can ask me." Tyler smiled. It was too wide, showing too many teeth. Not that kind of leaving. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Students pulled their jackets tighter. One girl started crying silently. I walked to her desk. "What's wrong, Sarah?" She shook her head and pointed at Tyler. He was standing perfectly still, that horrible smile frozen on his face. "Sit down, Tyler," I commanded. "I don't take orders from substitutes," he replied. Mrs. Chun knew the rules. "What rules?" The entire class spoke in unison. "Don't look directly at him. Don't say no to him. Don't tell anyone about him." My hands started shaking. This was coordinated, rehearsed. These kids were terrified. I grabbed my phone to call the office. "That's against the rules," Tyler said, suddenly standing right beside me. I never saw him move. The phone fell from my hand. The screen cracked. "I think you should leave," he whispered. "Substitutes who break rules don't come back." I looked at the clock. Still 30 minutes left in the period. "I'm staying until the bell rings." Tyler returned to his corner, never breaking eye contact. The students remained frozen in their seats. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. We sat in silence watching the clock. When the bell finally rang, the students filed out quickly, heads down. Tyler stayed. "You were brave," he said. "Stupid, but brave. Mrs. Chun wasn't brave. That's why she's on medical leave." He walked past me toward the door, then stopped. "Permanent medical leave." I ran to the principal's office. He listened to my story with a blank expression, then said, "We don't have a student named Tyler Morrison. Check your security cameras." He pulled up the footage from that period. It showed me teaching to a normal class. 24 students. No Tyler. No empty corner. The desk that wasn't supposed to be there didn't exist in the footage. "Maybe you should go home early," the principal suggested. "Take a few days off." I never went back. Later, I researched the school's history. In 1987, a student named Tyler Morrison died in that exact classroom. Carbon monoxide leak. The entire class fell unconscious, but only Tyler didn't wake up. The incident was covered up to avoid lawsuits. I called Mrs. Chun's home to check on her. Her husband answered. She had been committed to a psychiatric facility after suffering a complete breakdown. She kept insisting there were 25 students in her class, that one of them wasn't really there but wouldn't leave. The school called me again last week asking if I could substitute. Different class, they promised. Better pay. I declined. They've called every day since. The number that shows up on my phone isn't the school's main line. It's from classroom 207, Mrs. Chun's old room. I don't answer anymore. My grandfather died 6 months ago, leaving me everything he owned. Problem was, most of it sat in a storage unit across town that he had been renting for 30 years. My mom warned me not to go through it alone, said Grandpa kept strange things, but I figured she was being dramatic. The storage facility was one of those massive complexes with hundreds of units. Mine was K47, deep in the back corner of the property. The manager gave me the key and the code for the main gate, mentioning that my grandfather had been their longest customer. Never missed a payment, he said. Came by every week, same day, same time. Like clockwork. The unit was bigger than I expected, 20 by 30 feet, packed floor to ceiling with boxes, furniture, and things covered in tarps. A narrow path wound through the middle. The smell hit me first. Not rot or mold, but something chemical and sweet, like formaldehyde mixed with honey. I started with the boxes near the front. Old photos, tax documents, the usual stuff. Then I found his journal. The entries went back decades, but they weren't about daily life. Every entry was about the storage unit. Measurements, temperature readings, and something called feeding schedules. March 3, 1994. Fed at 3:33 a.m. accepted offering. Growing stronger. June 15, 2001. Missed feeding. It escaped briefly. Found it in Unit K46. Neighbors complained about smell. Must be more careful. October 31, 2018. It spoke today. Asked about the outside. Told it soon. Very soon. The entries got stranger as they got more recent. The last one was dated a week before he died. Almost time. It's ready. I'm not, but promises must be kept. My heir will understand. The bloodline continues. I should have left then. Instead, I went deeper into the unit. Behind an old wardrobe, I found a refrigerator. Still running, still humming, padlocked shut with a chain. A note taped to it said, "Do not open until feeding time." 3:33 a.m. My phone showed 11 p.m. Something inside the refrigerator moved. Not like food shifting, but like something repositioning itself. Deliberate, conscious. I found more journals in a filing cabinet. These explained everything in horrible detail. In 1974, my grandfather found something in the woods near his cabin. Something that shouldn't exist. He captured it, studied it, fed it. The feeding schedules were precise. Every week, same time, specific items. Raw meat at first. Then live mice. Then larger things. The thing grew. Got smarter, started communicating. It promised my grandfather something in exchange for its care. Immortality, he thought at first. But that wasn't it. The promise was continuation. As long as someone in the bloodline kept feeding it, the family would prosper. If feeding stopped, the family would end. A scratching sound came from the refrigerator. Then a voice, muffled but clear. "You're late." I checked my phone. 3:32 a.m. How did 4 hours pass 1 minute? The voice said. Open it now or break the promise. My hands moved without my permission, reaching for the padlock. The combination was my birth date. Of course it was. The lock clicked open. The chain fell away. Don't, I told myself out loud, but my hand grabbed the handle. The door opened. Inside was nothing but darkness. Not empty space, but thick living darkness that moved like oil. 2 eyes opened within it, then 4, then dozens. Finally, it said with too many voices. I'm so hungry. The darkness poured out like liquid, surrounding me but not touching. It waited. The journals had said what to feed it, but those pages were torn out. Destroyed. My grandfather wanted me to figure it out myself. What do you eat? I asked. Memories, it answered. Your grandfather fed me his. Every week 1 memory. Now he's empty. Used up. That's why he died. Not age. Not sickness. Just hollow. The thing showed me the truth. Every week, my grandfather stood here and let this thing consume 1 memory. First the bad ones, then the neutral ones, finally the good ones. By the end, he didn't remember my grandmother, my mother, or me. He only remembered the feeding schedule. Your turn, it said. Or your family ends. Everyone. Your mother, your sister, your cousins. All gone within the year. That's the promise. I felt it entering my mind, sorting through memories like files. It pulled one forward. My 5th birthday party. My grandfather had built me a treehouse. I watched the memory dissolve, eaten away until nothing remained. I knew something important had happened on my 5th birthday, but not what. Good, it said. Same time next week. The darkness retreated into the refrigerator. The door closed itself. The padlock clicked shut. I left the storage unit in a daze. The manager stopped me at the office. Your grandfather paid for the next 50 years in advance, he said. Guess he expected you to take over. I go every week now. Same day, same time. I've lost 17 memories so far. Important ones are going missing. My college graduation. My first kiss. My father's face is getting fuzzy. Soon I won't remember why I come here, only that I must. I tried to stop once. Stayed home instead. Within hours, my mother had a heart attack. My sister's car brakes failed. My cousin fell downstairs that shouldn't have been wet. I went back, fed it 3 memories as an apology. They all recovered immediately. I write everything down now, hoping the words will preserve what the thing takes. But even reading my own journal feels like reading fiction. These things happened to someone, but was it really me? 50 years of payments. 50 years of feeding. By then I'll be as empty as my grandfather. And somewhere in some storage unit, my heir will find a refrigerator with a note. The bloodline continues. I drove bus 47 for Riverside School District for 3 years without incident. My route covered the rural part of town, lonely roads cutting through farmland and forest. 23 stops, 41 kids, same routine every morning and afternoon. Everything changed when they added a new stop. The district supervisor called me into her office on a Monday. We need you to add 1 more pickup, she said, sliding me a revised route map. The new stop was on Millwood Road, a dead end I'd never heard of despite knowing every street in the area. Since when do people live on Millwood? I asked. She looked at her computer screen, frowning. System shows 1 student, Emma Thorne, 7th grade. Just pick her up and drop her off. No questions. Tuesday morning, I followed my normal route until the turn for Millwood. The road was barely visible, just a narrow dirt path between overgrown trees. My bus barely fit. Tree branches scraped the sides and roof as I drove deeper into the woods. After half a mile, the road ended at a small clearing, no house, no driveway. Just a wooden bench that looked ancient, covered in moss. A girl stood beside it wearing a Riverside uniform. Pale, thin, with black hair covering most of her face. She climbed aboard without a word and sat in the very back. The other kids went silent when they saw her. Some actually moved forward, away from her. Where's your house? I asked. She pointed vaguely into the woods. No structure was visible through the trees. The rest of the ride was uncomfortable. Kids who usually talked and laughed sat quietly, stealing glances at Emma. She never moved, never spoke, just stared straight ahead with eyes I couldn't quite see through her hair. At school, she got off last, walking slowly into the building. The moment she was gone, the bus exploded with whispers. Why did you pick her up? Asked Tommy, a usually cheerful 6th grader. She's a student. It's my job. She's not a student, said Melissa from the front row. She doesn't go to our school. I just dropped her off at school. No, several kids said together. She goes somewhere else. That afternoon, Emma was waiting at the school pickup zone. She boarded first and went straight to the back. Again, the other kids fell silent. When we reached Millwood Road, she walked off into the woods and disappeared within seconds. No path was visible where she went. This continued for days. The other kids grew more agitated each time. Some started refusing to get on the bus if Emma was already there. Parents called the school complaining their children were having nightmares. But when I asked the supervisor about it, she insisted Emma Thorne was enrolled and had every right to ride. Check the enrollment system yourself, I said. She typed the name. Nothing came up. She tried different spellings. Still nothing. Her face went pale. That's impossible. She's in the transportation database. She was right. The system showed Emma Thorne, Bus 47, Millwood Road, but no other records existed. No enrollment file, no grades, no emergency contacts. Just that single transportation entry. Keep picking her up, the supervisor said finally. I'll investigate. Friday morning was foggy. I could barely see the road to Millwood. When I reached the clearing, Emma wasn't at the bench. I waited the required 2 minutes, then started to reverse. A hand slammed against my window. Emma stood there, but wrong. Her school uniform was older, faded, like from decades ago. Her face was visible now, and I wished it wasn't. Her features kept shifting slightly, like she couldn't remember exactly what she was supposed to look like. You're early, she said through the glass. Her voice sounded like multiple people speaking almost in sync. Same time as always, I replied. Not your time. Real time. She boarded the bus and sat in a different seat. Row 13. When the other kids got on at later stops, they couldn't see her at first. Then Sarah Chun screamed. She had tried to sit in row 13 and her hand had passed through Emma like she was missed. She's not really here. Sarah cried. Emma turned to look at her. Neither was the lost driver who asked questions. I slammed the brakes. What did you say? Check the records. Bus 47. Previous driver. Mr. Garrett. Stopped showing up one day. Never found. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I did remember hearing about a driver who disappeared years ago, but nobody mentioned it was this route. That afternoon, Emma didn't wait at school. I thought maybe it was over. Then I reached Millwood Road. She stood in the middle of the path, blocking the way. But there were more of her. 5, maybe 6 figures, all looking like Emma but wrong in different ways. Different ages, different eras of uniform. We've been waiting, they said in unison, for someone to complete the route. What route? The one that ends where it began. In 1952, Bus 47 crashed on Millwood Road. Everyone died. But the district never removed the stop from the system. We've been writing different versions of Bus 47 ever since. Waiting for a driver to take us all the way home. You're already at your stop. This isn't home. Home is through the woods, where the old road used to go, before they built the new highway. Before they forgot about us, they all pointed deeper into the forest. Through the fog, I could see something. A road that shouldn't exist anymore, paved with old cobblestones. Drive us home, and we stop writing. Refuse, and you become the next driver who disappears. Every instinct told me not to do it. But all the Emmas climbed aboard. They filled seats that weren't there, extending the bus impossibly long. I put the bus in drive and turned onto the cobblestone road. We drove for what felt like hours, but the clock never moved. The forest grew denser, older. Finally, we reached a small town that looked frozen in the 1950s. A school stood at the center, with parents waiting outside, dressed in period clothing. They waved at the bus, smiling with faces that didn't quite work. The Emmas filed off one by one, running to the waiting figures. The last Emma turned to me. Thank you, but now you know the way. And those who know the way must keep driving it. The town dissolved. I was back on modern roads, pulling into the bus depot. The supervisor ran out. Where have you been? You disappeared for 3 hours. I checked my watch. It had felt like minutes. That was 2 weeks ago. The Millwood stop was removed from my route, but I still see the road. Sometimes it appears in different places. Between other stops, in my personal car's GPS, in dreams. And Emma still waits there, with all the others who never made it home the first time. The supervisor says I look tired. Says maybe I should take a break. She doesn't understand that I can't. Every morning I check my route, hoping Millwood isn't back on it. But I know it will be. And when it is, I'll have to drive that impossible road again. Because now I know the way. And those who know the way can never really leave. When I moved into my apartment, the landlord mentioned the unit above me was empty and would stay that way. Renovation issues? He said vaguely. The rent was cheap for the area, so I didn't ask questions. For 2 months, everything was perfect. Quiet building, good neighbors, close to work. Then I started hearing footsteps from above. Not occasional creaking, but deliberate walking. Back and forth, always the same pattern. Kitchen to living room to bedroom, based on the layout matching mine. I texted the landlord. He insisted the unit was empty, had been for years. Maybe it was the building settling, he suggested. Old buildings make noise, but settling doesn't follow a routine. Every night at exactly 9:17 p.m., the walking would start. 15 minutes of pacing, then silence until 3:33 a.m. Then another 15 minutes, like clockwork. I tried recording it to send to the landlord, but the audio came out silent. My phone picked up nothing, even as I heard the footsteps directly above me. I borrowed a better recorder from a friend who did podcasts. Same result. The footsteps were loud and clear to my ears, but invisible to any device. After 2 weeks of this, I decided to investigate. The stairwell to the 3rd floor was behind a door marked maintenance only. It wasn't locked. The stairs were covered in dust except for a single set of fresh footprints going up, none coming down. The door to 3B was different from the others. Older wood with symbols carved into the frame. Not vandalism, but deliberate markings that looked almost runic. The door was slightly open. I knocked. The footsteps inside stopped immediately, then rushed toward the door. I ran back downstairs and locked myself in my apartment. Nobody followed. That night, the pattern changed. Instead of pacing, I heard furniture being dragged around. Heavy pieces scraping against the floor, rearranging themselves. By morning, it sounded like the entire layout had changed. I couldn't take it anymore. I went back up during daylight. This time I pushed the door fully open and looked inside. The apartment was completely empty. No furniture, no sign anyone had been there. Except the dust on the floor was disturbed in perfect furniture-sized rectangles. Like someone had removed everything moments before I arrived. On the wall facing my apartment was a hole. Not damaged, but a deliberately cut opening about the size of a quarter. I looked through it and saw straight down into my bedroom. My bed was directly below. I covered the hole with duct tape from below and called the landlord again. This time he sounded nervous. "You went upstairs?" The door was open. "Don't go up there again, I'll handle it." "Handle what? Handle what?" "Who lived there before?" He hung up. An hour later, a maintenance crew arrived. Not regular maintenance, but serious-looking people in hazmat suits. They went upstairs with equipment I didn't recognize. The building shook slightly, like a minor earthquake, then nothing. They left without speaking to anyone. The landlord called that evening. "The issue has been resolved. You won't hear noises anymore." "What was up there?" "Previous tenant left some things behind. It's been cleared out." That was a lie. I looked up the building's history. Apartment 3B had a tenant named Marcus Webb from 1998 to 2003. He was a researcher at the local university, studying something called dimensional overlap theory. He disappeared one day. Not moved out. Disappeared. His belongings were found arranged in impossible ways, furniture fused into walls, books existing in the same space. The investigation was sealed. The footsteps stopped for exactly 1 week. Then they came back different. Instead of walking, I heard breathing. Deep, rhythmic breathing directly above my bed. The hole I had covered was open again, the tape pushed through to my side. I started sleeping on the couch. But the breathing followed me. Wherever I was in the apartment, it was directly above. I set up a camera pointed at the ceiling and watched the footage. At the times I heard breathing, the ceiling showed a slight depression, like something heavy was pressing down from above, bending reality just enough to be visible. I moved out last week, breaking my lease. The landlord didn't fight it. As I was packing, I found a note slipped under my door. Handwritten in ink that looked fresh but somehow old. The previous tenant never left. The renovation isn't to keep people out, it's to keep him in. But boundaries are thinning. He's learning the crossover. You were smart to leave. The next tenant won't be warned. I drove by the building yesterday. There's a moving truck outside. Young couple carrying boxes in, laughing and excited. The window to 3B was dark except for a moment, when I saw a face pressed against the glass, mouth open like it was trying to scream. The couple couldn't see it, but I knew they'd hear it soon enough. Tonight, at 9:17 p.m., the walking will start. And somewhere above them, Marcus Webb continues his research, stuck between dimensions, desperate to complete his crossing.